Do they want to alienate half of the country by inserting themselves in this very polarizing conversation?
I mean, it's a big question, and I don't know the answer to it. But I think
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, once the golden couple of royal fairy tales, are making headlines again. But this time, it's not about the monarchy. It's about politics, specifically their vocal stance on former President Donald Trump. Did their comments really sway American voters? Are they risking their public image by diving into US politics?
and they have proven to be just as divisive across the pond as they are over here.
I have to tell you about this new piece in Newsweek, and they're talking about how an election endorsement from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry could actually influence more than 40% of Americans. I mean, it's kind of that sentence right there makes it sound like, I think your first instinct is that 40% of Americans would agree or disagree with Prince Harry or Meghan Markle, but it actually breaks down almost evenly. 21% said they would be more likely to vote for a candidate endorsed by the Sussexes compared to 20% who said that they would be less likely. The others really had no opinion about it. But these are two people that we know politics are on their mind. We know that they are heavily invested in this news cycle. In 2020, Meghan spoke on the importance of women casting their ballots for a virtual When All Women Vote couch party. I don't know if you remember this, but there were multiple big-wig Democrats involved in this. I believe it was Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, just a lot of familiar faces when it came to the Democratic Party at the time. She spoke on the importance of women using their voice, the high stakes of the election, which I'd say she probably thinks this election is just as high stakes, and honoring those who came before us and who will come after us when we head to the voting booths. We know that Meghan has been vocal of her criticism of Donald Trump, though at one point she actually befriended his daughter Ivanka, that she talked about her on the TIG very lovingly. She's spoken out against Trump before meeting Prince Harry, and then Prince Harry spoke negatively about him when he accidentally took that phone call by Russian pranksters posing as Greta Thunberg. So we know neither one of them are necessarily fans of Donald Trump. And when they campaigned in America in 2020, not for a specific candidate, but to vote, they did say change is what we need, change is what we deserve, which people felt like alluded to the pair saying, let's move away from President Donald Trump at the time.
Let's unpack the real story. Back in 2020, Meghan Markle made a bold move, appearing in a virtual event encouraging women to vote. Not exactly royal protocol, but Meghan was never about following the rules. She aligned herself with high-profile Democrats like Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, speaking passionately about the importance of voter turnout. And while she didn't mention Trump by name, the message was loud and clear. Let's talk Trump. Meghan has never been a fan. In fact, before she even met Harry, she called him divisive and misogynistic.
This is a very sticky situation. Katie, I wonder if it would be important to Meghan to have a voice in this particular election. I know she spoke 75 days out in 2020, so we still have plenty of time before we head to the polls in November. But do they want to rock the boat? Do they want to alienate half of the country by inserting themselves in this very polarizing conversation?
I mean, it's a big question, and I don't know the answer to it. But I think they have proven to be just as divisive across the pond as they are over here. They're very controversial. It was like they seem to be like Marmite, and they really do divide people. So I think that anyone that's advising them will probably be advising them to not get involved. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going and saying, use your vote. And I think, it's very likely that we will hear Meghan saying that, particularly to encourage women to go and vote. As you say, she is very political. I mean, she harbored political ambitions of her own at one point in her lifetime. But I think I think they've had their fingers burned in the past. I think they're very aware of how controversial they are. I mean, I think that whole Pat Tillman award really probably shook them up when there was criticism over them getting that award, sort of essentially a humanitarian award. And even that was the root of some controversy for them. So by wading into the political arena, particularly, I know they're not working royals, but Harry is still a member of the royal family. And as a member of the royal family, he's meant to be apolitical. Now, he's got as close to that political arena as he can, just about, without being hauled over the coals. But I think they need to exercise caution. And I suspect they probably will. I think they can be cautious whilst encouraging people to get out there and vote. But I think that's a really interesting finding from Newsweek, and just shows that, shows their influence. As much as they divide people, can't take away from the fact that they're still incredibly influential.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it's almost as if she intentionally...
And Prince Harry? He may have accidentally revealed his feelings during a prank call from Russian comedians posing as Greta Thunberg, criticizing Trump's environmental policies and leadership. While they never publicly endorsed a candidate, their calls for change during the 2020 election were widely interpreted as anti-Trump. A recent Newsweek poll revealed that an endorsement from the Sussexes could influence over 40% of American voters. 21% said they'd be more likely to vote for a candidate endorsed by them.
Because that's a true passion, has always kind of had a leg in this world. And so, of course, that people are going to be influenced by her if they have heard her openly communicate about something like this over the last few years. It's not a shock factor like, oh, you can't do that. I mean, she was openly discussing politics, sitting down with Larry King prior to meeting Prince Harry. So there is a fan base out there that not only is not taken aback by her communicating this way, but they expect it because that's who they knew prior to her marrying into the royal family. There is another story that's been on my radar over the last week, and it is the idea that Prince Harry owns the right to spare his book. As you know, he owns the right to not only the book, but perhaps the movie potential. Could somebody turn this into a movie? There was a lot of talk about this at the time that the book blew up. Who's going to get the movie rights? Is this going to be a made-for-TV movie? Is it going to be HBO? Does it automatically go to Netflix? The potential was endless. Now we're hearing reports, this has been reported on both GB News and the Daily Mail, that Prince Harry owns the rights, but he is holding on to them with a vengeance out of fear that whoever could purchase them might write Diana, Princess Diana, or Meghan Markle in a negative light. Have you heard something similar? I guess I have a bigger question for you in regards to this, but have you heard something similar? What is your initial reaction?
I've heard the rumours, and I have to say that I think that's probably one of the best, most sensible decisions Prince Harry has made, to hold on and retain those movie rights, because had he sold them, and he'd probably have got a huge amount of money for doing so, he's lost total control. If anyone was able to make a film version of that, I mean, it doesn't really even bear thinking about, to be honest, Kinsey. And I think it goes far beyond just how Meghan might be portrayed, how Diana might be portrayed. I mean, imagine the huge potential for even more damage to be done between his relationship between him and his stepmother Camilla, between him and his father, between him and his brother. I mean, you only need to sort of look at something like The Crown to see how much something that close to the bone can upset the royal family. For something to be turned into a movie based on Prince Harry's own words has the potential for, I think, a huge amount of controversy, possibly a great deal of litigation. So actually, while I think he's made mistakes in Spare, revealing intimate details of private conversations, which has led to this big breakdown of trust between him and his family, actually, whoever advised him to retain those movie rights, which, as I say, could have earned him an absolute fortune, whatever advice.
While 20% said they'd be less likely. That's influence. But it also proves how polarizing the couple has become. Love them or hate them, they've got America talking. Traditionally, royals are expected to remain apolitical, but Harry and Meghan aren't exactly traditional anymore, are they? Meghan's always had political ambitions, and Harry, while still technically part of the royal family, has pushed boundaries.
Whoever gave it, it was very good advice and very sensible of him to take it.
Absolutely. A raise for that Archwell employee. I wondered, though, when I was reading the story, it occurred to me both Prince Harry and Prince William are so fiercely protective of their wives, but also Princess Diana. I really admired Prince William watching him stand there and just tear into the BBC over the Martin Bashir investigation. You just could feel how devastated he was, that there was now tangible proof that his mom had been manipulated, his mother had been manipulated into this interview that at the time crushed him. You know, it crushed him to have to sit there and have classmates discussing this and to have the world discussing this very revealing interview that she had done with Martin Bashir. And then we see Prince William protecting the Princess of Wales throughout this cancer battle. We see Prince Harry, you've been quoted all over the place when we did our interview about how physically you can tell Prince Harry protects Meghan Markle sometimes when they're photographed together. That PDA is not just love, but it's also security. Where did these boys learn this? Do you think that this is something they taught each other? Because in the book Spare, if you read Diana, Her True Story, you hear a message that Diana was all alone and that she didn't have anybody to protect her. So do you think that this is a characteristic that these two brothers developed together out of seeing that lack of protection for their mother?
Yes, I mean, I think, William was obviously far more aware of it than Harry was because of the age difference between them. But, they grew up, seeing their mother hounded by the paparazzi, losing their mother in terribly tragic circumstances, and I suppose as they got older, understanding that more and knowing that when it came to their own wives, they wanted to be able to protect them in a way that they obviously felt their mother hadn't been protected. And, we've seen that with William. He's written various pretty strong letters to editors over the years, particularly thinking about his courtship with, as she then was, Kate Middleton, making it very clear that he wasn't going to tolerate any sort of intrusion when she was photographed topless and those pictures appeared on the cover of Closer magazine in France. He took serious legal action, won a massive payout and, donated all the money to charity. I mean, that sort of...
Critics argue they're overstepping. Their fans? They say the couple is using their platform for good. Hey, if you're loving this deep dive into the royals and politics, hit that subscribe button and join the conversation. We've got more royalty coming every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.
Protective instinct kicked in right from the start, and if anyone crosses the line now, William will be just as ferocious in litigation, and understandably so. We've seen it with Harry over the years with his girlfriends, but I think particularly with Meghan Markle, as she then was before she got married, particularly at that start of the relationship when there was just fevered interest, it just was out of all sense of proportion. And I think this is these men wanting to protect their, at the time, girlfriends and then now wives. And I think it's that same protective instinct that kicks in with their children. And I think you're right. I think it's down to what they saw their mother experience, but also down to what they experienced as children. When everything from their, losing their first tooth to taking their first steps to whatever it might have been was chronicled in the media in this sort of omnipresent lens on their lives. We talk about that goldfish bowl of royalty. That's why William left Kensington Palace, to get away from that. It's why Harry left the country, to escape that. It's a gilded cage.
So, what's next for Harry and Meghan? Will they speak out again before the 2024 election? Or play it safe to avoid more backlash? One thing's for sure. They've stepped out of the palace and into the political spotlight, and they're not afraid to shake things up. What do you think? Are they crossing the line or simply speaking their truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video if you found it interesting.